How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you so much again for the invitation.
No, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. When I first come across your profile in Facebook, I was like, Dorothy, American name, but Hassan, it's a different name. So tell us a little bit about that. Keep them guessing. Okay, okay. You sure doing the job, right?
Dorothy, I am an American convert. So I converted to Islam in my second year of undergraduate university. And my husband, I have my husband's last name,
Okay,
and my husband is Egyptian,
okay,
and that's who we are. We're the Hassan family.
okay, okay. Excellent. How long was that ago when you converted?
I converted my second year in undergrad, so you're asking me to tell my absolute age. That would be,
How long has it been since you become Muslim? I just put it that way.
but even still, I'm not shy about my age. So my eldest son is 25.
Oh, okay.
So that means it's been about 27 years now.
Okay. Okay. What do you remember the most on prior you becoming a Muslim? I'm assuming you were Christian at the time.
Yes.
So, like, how do you compare the two? Or I don't want to say compare, but I guess what I'm trying to figure out, what is the similarities in between the two religions that you think in your mind or you have experienced living through it?
I actually talk a lot about how my experience as a convert gives me the advantage of two different lenses.
Okay.
Um, and if you ask about similarities, um, one of the similarities is just people of faith have a higher calling. They know that it's not just about them. So that is absolutely something similar. And I think that similarity is one of the things that made my conversion a soft landing with my family. We didn't have any friction when I told my mother, especially, that I had converted to Islam. She told me, I always knew that you were going to be a woman of faith. I just thought you were going to be a nun. And that was, a point to what her understanding of a faithful woman was. But I've actually always known that I wanted to live a life of faith. I wanted to live a life of service. So this was always in the making.
Okay. Excellent. Alhamdulillah, right? You're from Ohio.
No,
Okay.
I'm originally from the state of Delaware.
Okay.
So I was born about 40 minutes outside of Wilmington, Delaware.
Okay.
And the name Wilmington, Delaware, of course, got on the scene with President Biden because that's the same town that President Biden started his career in. So I was raised there, went to undergrad in Pennsylvania. And in undergrad, I wanted to study abroad. I've always been fascinated with the richness of the African diaspora and just the places that I was choosing in undergrad. There was always civil unrest. So people used to make a joke like it was me my choices that were causing trouble in faraway lands. But anyway, after I graduated, I had the luxury of having a great job. We saved up some money and then we moved to Yemen. I lived in Yemen for 6 years. And then
Per you.
I lived in Sana'a for two years.
Okay.
And then after that, I lived in Saad for 4 years.
Wow. How was that like for you?
It was exactly what your face says it was. Yemen was Yemen, alhamdulillah. We had literally the luxury of living without electric, without water, without those amenities in the village for years. And I've never met more wonderful people.
Hmm.
Never had more peace and time to reflect. I do fervently believe that as far as faith, there's some things that you'll never have a chance to understand and connect your heart and mind to unless you're able to pull back all of those luxuries of what we know as everyday American life.
So a lot of people, including me, when I first came here, those cultural shock, I had to experience that. So tell me about the cultural shock when you actually went there to visit there. So was it more the weather like? Was it more like the actually the experience of living through in a place that has no electricity, has no, the thing that you were used to, growing up here in the States.
I will tell you that the very first culture shock, when we touched down in Yemen was, that everyone chewed rat. So when I'll never forget this, the first day, the groom, yes, yeah. When we of course we flew in and we got to our place at night. So that morning, first thing we went to the shop and everything, try you get the basic necessities for our place. And I remember seeing all of the men with this green stuff in their mouth. And I was like, I didn't read about this. This wasn't in the research. I mean, but in the end, I'm an academic, so I did my travel research and everything before we got there. So that was my first culture shock.
Wow, I can only imagine. Yeah, I can only imagine. Circling back to the States, now you're running for a city council member at the city of Hilliard. How's that going? How's the campaign like?
It's going well.
Okay.
I This is my first time running for political office, but I wouldn't say my first time um, in the arena of politics. Uh, Nonprofit work actually has a lot to do with politics, and there's lots of politics and layers and wonderful interactions with local electeds and politicians in the nonprofit work that I do with our helpers. And that's why when I was encouraged by the heavy Democrats that I work with in the city of Columbus to run for Hilliard City Council, it seemed like a very seamless transition.
Okay. So how long you lived in the city of Hilliard?
I've lived in Hilliard since 2012.
Okay. What's your experience like living there?
Fun thing is that I told you about Yemen, I told you about Egypt. I actually heard about Hilliard when we were in Yemen. We heard about this mystical Midwest small town that had many Somalis, many Arabs, that the public schools were progressive enough to be meeting the needs of our Muslim school age children. It seemed like a natural fit. And so far, that's always been my Hilliard, a place where we felt like we had community, a place where my children, of course, were in proximity to the nationally acclaimed Masjid Noor.
MashaAllah. So you worked with nonprofit, which kind of sort of planted the seed for you to, run from office. But when was that moment that kind of sort of changed or pushed you forward to say, okay, well, I was thinking about doing it, but now I'm actually going to do it?
The moment. I don't know that there was ever a moment. I'm a very calculated person, and I actually I'm a planner. So moments rarely happen in my life by choice. I like to plan things very carefully. But I will say that I've had the pleasure of being surrounded by sisterhood and love from Representative Munira Abdullahi.
Mhm.
So it was in those moments with seeing her and running into her all the time at different events, different occasions in community, that I was constantly reminded about the power of representation.
When you get in office,
Let's go.
what's your vision for the city?
My initial vision for the city is to do what we've done so well with our helpers for the last 3 years. For the last 3 years, we have tripled our impact each and every year. And that's because we've done such a great job with extending into the community and following a grassroots model to pull different voices and new people into the planning and the decision making that goes on in the organization. So that is very much my agenda, making sure that we're pulling in diverse voices
Mhm.
so that we can create a community where everyone feels seen, heard, and knows that they belong.
And let's talk about the growth of the city of Hilliard itself. It's growing. There's a lot of diverse, like you said, there's a lot of different type of communities. How is the city coping with, or more so kind of sort of a greater understanding of the acceptance of the multicultural that's actually happening?
That's a great question. And I don't know that there's a fair response that is totally unbiased to that question because how I would say Hilliard School District is coping wonderfully. They have been leading the way for a very long time with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Their teachers are well trained. The teachers are culturally humble. Even with the new need that we have right now, where immigrants are being targeted with new executive orders and such, Hilliard School District has they rose to the occasion and made sure that all of the teachers were well informed and trained. So the school district, 10 out of 10 every day.
Okay.
As far as the city, one of the things that I like to bring people's attention to is that city council looks a lot like it did 20 years ago. It is not representative of the diverse community that now lives and thrives in Hilliard. Sometimes, so the other hat that I wear is I am actually a professor and I teach diversity, equity, and inclusion. So when we talk about a lack of visual representation and that real presence, the issue is that even though we have people who are culturally humble and involved, there are just some things, some lived experiences that cannot be shared except that they are represented from that community. It's that lived experience. So we have gaps in lived experience in Hilliard on city council.
Okay, so the city is growing, right? There's a lot of different cultures, and what I'm sensing and is that there's no representation of that diverse community that's actually thriving. That so there's other members that are also varsity side of it actually running too as well.
Yes.
So are you already? So give me the understanding of how many seats are available. That how many seats a primary will be open for, or will be up for re-election, or will be up for the opportunity for you to actually participate and get in office.
This is one of the reasons why this is a historic Democratic primary in Hilliard, because there's only 4 seats that are actually available, but 7 Democrats running. So that's how we found ourselves in the position of a Democratic primary, because there's more people running than are seats available.
How many seats are available?
4.
There's a total of 7 actually candidates that are running.
Yes. 2 are incumbents.
Okay.
So the president of Hilliard City Council and the vice president are up for re-election.
Okay.
So those are the 2 incumbents. And then there's 2 other people running on a slate with them.
Okay.
And then there's myself. There's a gentleman named Samir Bazabashi and Nadia Rasul. And contrary to people's belief, people don't understand that on an average Friday in Masjid Noor, there's 5,000 people that come in and out of one of the 4 prayers that we have there. So I didn't know Samir and Nadia before this occasion, that we all, by coincidence and a love mercy, that we decided to run for Hilliard City Council. So it wasn't until then that we met each other and saw that many of our ideas align and knew that we could support each other in our race. And that's why you'll see some of the advertisements have all 3 of us together.
How did that help you find somebody that who is have a lot more in common with and a lot more support to actually help you go through that? So, and also have they run in prior seats available for the city council?
From my understanding, this is both of their first times running for an elected positions, but this is not, for example, Nadia's first time as a public servant. She's still currently on the YMCA board. or I don't know if it's the YM or the YW, but she's on the WISE board.
Okay.
And she has been on a Park and Recs advisory board. She's got 30 years of a pharmacist in Hilliard. So she has these rock star stories of, especially even during COVID,
Yeah.
going out into the community and being a voice to make sure that the Arab speaking residents in Hilliard knew how to protect themselves in COVID, knew the importance of getting vaccines, things like that. So she has a rock star story, but again, not short of Samer Bazabashi. Samer is a tech mogul. He runs a company. I don't even know how many people, and that's really important. That being responsible for that many people's livelihood is a big deal.
Yes. Do you feel Hilliard feels like home?
To me, it does.
Okay.
It always has.
What about the people that you'll end up representing? What's your sense out of it? Just so
One of the
you
things that
kind
I've said in one of these wonderful interviews that we've been doing since the campaign is that I want to make sure that Hilliard can offer that sense of home to other families as it did for me. I knew why I was coming to Hilliard. I found community immediately, but Hilliard is getting bigger, and one of the things that I am concerned about is that as people continue to spread out, that they still know that there is a center, and that that they're supported by a solid community. So as our acreage gets larger and we spread out, I want us to know that community is still within hand's reach.
So let's talk about your day-to-day job. Sure, you said you're a professor.
So
What
that's
do you
not my
teach?
day to day.
Okay.
That's my
Side of his.
no, I got a side gig too. So that's not the side gig. So I'm proud.
All that.
I'm most proud of three hats.
Okay.
I have the privilege and responsibility of leading Our Helpers, which is a nonprofit organization on a mission to improve the lives of immigrant and refugee families here in Central Ohio. So we have all of the regular nonprofit things, but two of the accomplishments that I'm really proud of is our community free store. So we have a community free store that we open up to families to decrease the triggers of scarcity trauma.
Okay.
And we re-envision what it looks like, what basic needs looks like. When people are
A little bit more.
sure, I think that we just America, we have this old narrative that if you're fed, if you're housed, if you have a job, then your basic needs are met. But that's not enough. So fed, when we're talking about the immigrant and refugee community, we want to make sure that people are actually eating food that makes them feel like home. So having access to cultural and ethnic food that they're familiar with and they know and they're proud to serve their family. Housed, absolutely making sure that people are housed in community, not somewhere where they don't find themselves or see themselves, and in safe places.
So our helper. You touched on a lot of things, so I just kind of want to figure out, unpack a little bit, and to give you an idea, I'm going with the road of mental health.
Sure.
Okay, so our helper is one of the hats you wear. What are the other two? You mentioned three hats.
The other hat is I'm an adjunct professor with Cornell University.
Okay.
I teach diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
I also teach counteracting unconscious bias.
Okay.
And then the other hat is I'm also a small business owner.
Okay.
I own a education consulting group called Forward Step Education, and we design and deliver professional development training for both individuals and organizations that are invested in creative, inclusive spaces for diverse people.
Okay. Excellent. In the diversity, equity, and inclusion, we hear a lot of stories that's coming on from and the new president, and it's touching on a lot of people, right? Yeah, is it touching you in terms of like?
Thankfully, I think diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been in the fabric of who we are and the work we do. I do feel like one of the things that this current administration tried to do was to box DEI work into a hat of black versus white, gay versus straight. And now that he has called national attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, people are able to see that it's far more layered than they thought it was.
Interesting. Okay. So you may or may not touch.
Well, right now, I mean, work is good because people are still requesting training.
Okay.
We're still, getting new requests, new proposals. So yeah, we're still doing the work.
Okay. So how do you manage? Obviously, I sense that somebody that who's a multitask and managing a lot of things, figuring out a lot of things, and what's going to happen that individual in office.
I anticipated this question at another occasion, actually. So I prepared for it, and no one has asked me yet. So thank you. I anticipate that being on Hilliard City Council will not be another job, but it will just be an extension of what I do. Um, I want to make sure that there's just another opportunity where I'm taking space and making space. And I talk about this taking space, making space all the time. When I say take space, I always say that the spaces that I'm in are not by accident. I've worked very, very hard to have the privilege that I have. I have all of the family sacrifices, all of the student loan sacrifices, everything where I feel like I've worked for this privilege to take space. But I do always have the intention of making space and making sure that when a door is opened for me, that I leave it open for anyone else who might want to come and not behind me, but beside me. And it's not just about leaving doors open, it's also making sure that people are, have equitable access to training, to different discussions, different learning experiences to be qualified when they get to the point where they're able to also take space and make space.
So when you get elected, you'll be the first. I'm assuming I haven't really looked checked well, but you'll be the first Black Muslim person on the council.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
It's again, it's a wonderful opportunity to share. We've already made history. We've already made history by being the first African American Muslim on the ballot in for Hilliard City Council in a Democratic primary. So we've made history, and I'm excited to continue in that vein.
Do you feel the city has made it an more opportunity or more welcoming opportunity for that to happen?
I think it's pretty early to answer that because again, the proof is in the pudding. The proof is it's Tuesday. Okay. Everyone can be nice. Everyone can be hospitable as they have been, actually. It's been a wonderful experience to meet new people and to have different discussions with people that I may not have met outside of the campaign trail. But the proof is in the pudding.
Okay,
It all comes down to the vote.
excellent. How do you stay grounded in all this stuff that's going on? It's a lot to do with. I'm assuming.
I smile because that is a beautiful, beautiful question. And in 2020, when I've always been a multitasker, I've always been doing as much as I can to give, starting with my own 5 children. So in 2020, my husband came to me and he said, I have a proposition for you. And he told me, if you can help me convince the children that we should move back to. So when life slowed down, I took advantage of all of like the free learning and things that were on the internet. and that was my first interaction with mental health first aid. And when I started learning about mental health, when I started learning about rest, when I started learning about wellness, I was absolutely sold. I was sold. And it was then that I committed to making sure that when I came stateside, it was absolutely going to be something that I share with everyone I know. So thankfully, I've been able to fulfill that commitment. And we started offering mental health first aid trainings to the immigrant and refugee community in 2022. And since I have since trained, I think, about 250 plus individuals in mental health first aid. I also train in QPR, which is suicide prevention. And it's still something that I'm very, very, very proud of.
So tell me a little bit about that training. What does that entail? When you said first aid, mental health.
Health first aid is exactly what it sounds like. We have all of our children in school. If you mention the word first aid, everyone knows, oh, what to do in case of an emergency. So mental health first aid is an international evidence-based curriculum that wants to make that same norm in in the discipline of mental health. So it teaches people how to recognize early signs and symptoms of mental health crisis all the way to what to do in a crisis.
So give us example, like what to do at a crisis.
A crisis, of course, is considered suicide ideology. What should a person do when someone they know is being challenged and is thinking about taking their own life?
What signs to look for?
That's the problem, is that there are too many people. There are still too many people that don't know
Right.
how to recognize those signs and symptoms. And it's too many people when 1 in 5 Americans will experience a mental health challenge.
So if somebody listening to us right now, whether that's to any available channel through the podcast, what how would they recognize an early stage of mental health from somebody that they know, somebody that they've seen, somebody that they think that
That's a great question. One of the early signs is when you are able to recognize opposite behavior. So when that person starts acting opposite of their norm. So for example, someone who is vibrant, they get up in the morning, they keep it going, they go to work or they run their errands or they do their thing. When when you're able to recognize that each session has a time limit, so we're not talking about 1 day, 2 day, but when you recognize that for a long time, a lengthy part of some time has gone, and they just seem to be out of their rhythm, out of the loop of what they usually do, that is the first that's the first sign. Okay.
yeah, I mean mental health is just a big we can talk about it.
It is. It is. And we
Right.
should talk about it much more
I agree. I
because
don't think we do enough.
we absolutely don't.
I don't think we do.
We absolutely don't.
And a lot of things get swept under the carpet. Oftentimes, oh yeah, that's taboo. Like don't bring it up. Why would you even thinking about it? That kind of stuff. So, and a result of that, a lot of people suffer, and a lot of lives are lost. Folks that don't know you, and people that haven't heard Dorothy Hassan, give us like just a summary of what you represent and what you hope to do when you get in office. If things doesn't go your way, and at least to what you gain out of it through the whole process.
I would be brave enough to say that Dorothy Hassan is a mother. She's a neighbor. She's a professionally trained gentle disruptor. She's an advocate for everyone. She's a researcher, and she's ready. She's ready to make sure that there's a place for every voice at the table. What I feel that I've gained already outside from the campaign, what I've gained already from the campaign is, I guess, a reminder of my commitment to be present. We cannot expect ever for someone to come and give us anything. Life doesn't happen like that. We have to make sure that we're showing up in all of these different places so that we can be counted. Um, Something that I'll always hold dear to me is that when I was mentally preparing myself for the campaign, I I adjusted the screensaver on my Apple Watch, and it says a quote from Malcolm X, and it says, "We are not outnumbered, we're out organized." So even outside of the things that are happening in Hilliard City politics, on a national level, as a Democrat, as a Black Muslim woman right now living in these times, that's something that I remind myself of daily, is that we're not outnumbered, we're out organized. So that is something that I've gained from the campaign, a reminder to that we have to become more organized as a community. And when I say as a community, I'm not talking about just the Muslim community. I'm talking about we have to become more organized as a community of people who actually dare to care, because the voices that are the loudest right now are those who are trying to other different communities, and that's not what I want to stand for.
I wish you all the best, and I hope the outcome favors your end, and all the other folks that are running that your council process support one another. If there was a last minute last minute thing that you want to say, and it is sort of an advice, and let people know that to come out, and hopefully we'll try to get this out.
I mean, we've through the campaign, I've had uh, the opportunity to meet with people who don't even live in the Hilliards or are not in a position to be able to vote for me. But my constant reminder to everyone is that voting is part of the package. It's what you're paying for. So you're paying your taxes, you're obeying the laws, you're being a wonderful neighbor. What's the return of investment on that? The return of investment on that is the right to vote. So not showing up to vote is like going to the store, buying something, and leaving the bag with the cashier. Who would actually do that?
Yeah.
No one would do that. But that's what we're doing, because we're going to work, we're paying our taxes, we're abiding by the law, but we're still not voting and just leaving that bag with the cashier. Not at all. We don't want to do that effort. Show up. If, when someone's asking for your voice, when you have the right to speak up, speak up.
I think we'll leave it at that on May 6th, right? Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.